Itachi Shinden, Book of Bright Light Chapter 2 Part 3. Even with the warmth of the blanket wrapped around his body, he couldn't stop shaking. The man's attack felt like a memory of a distant day, but it had only happened a few hours earlier. Given the urgent nature of the situation, the daimyo's visit was postponed, and he returned that day to the land of fire. After hearing reports from the Umbu and Yuki, the Hokage and the other village officials decided to have Itachi report in a few days. He was sent home immediately after he returned to the village. But he didn't feel like doing anything. He couldn't muster an interest in even eating supper. He just lay there under his blankets, despite the fact that it was still early evening. Even Sasuke was awake. Itachi wrapped himself alone in his blankets and endured the incessant shaking. In his heart was a disappointment with himself. Tenma died. Right in front of him. He was the only one who could have saved Tenma. And yet, he hadn't been able to do anything. Is Itachi all right? He heard his father's voice from the other side of the sliding doors as he arrived home. He left his dinner. He's still lying down in his room. His mother's voice. He's a ninja now. Teammates sometimes die in front of you. But he's still only 8. He should really still be playing at the academy with his friends. A testament to his talents. It's precisely because he attracted the attention of people in the village that he got assigned the mission of guarding the daimyo. And precisely because it was an important mission, it carried an element of danger. Living through the carnage time and time again is how a ninja grows up. His father's words pushed through the warmth of the blankets and pierced Itachi's heart. Still green. He was lacking. He was lacking, and so his teammate died. His father was saying all this because he was not good enough yet. He wanted more power. Enough power to defeat that man. Can't you get him into the military police and have him working under you? He won't be joining the military police. His father's words dug into his heart. I'm thinking about his future here. He needs to keep working hard as a genin right now. But he's just Dash. It's fine. I'm sure he'll get over it. Itachi clutched the blankets even more tightly, as if he could use them to escape the sound of his father's voice. And in NGH, emotions he couldn't suppress became a groan of anguish and forced their way out of him. His body shivered and shook. He wasn't shaking because he was afraid. Anger at his own useless self rocked his body. A sense of helplessness, defeat, emptiness, disappointment. He shook with these waves of emotion, turned inward to race through his body. He wanted power. He didn't have enough power to protect his teammates, nor enough to put his father's mind at ease. More. He would go beyond even that masked man. No, he would have the power to go beyond anyone and everyone in this world. And then, he would grab onto the root of all fighting with his own hands. He felt something hot beneath his tightly closed eyelids. Not tears. Something hotter than that. Throb. He felt a pounding at the nape of his neck, and then something hot like fire shot through his body and concentrated around the pounding before pouring into his eyes. Itachi finally realized that the source of this blazing power was chakra. Those born into the Uchiha clan were cloaked in a chakra with fire attributes. But he had never before in his life experienced this kind of heat from his chakra. Still, he managed to coolly assess what was occurring within his own body. Eyes still closed, he pushed the blankets off and sat up in his futon before gradually opening his eyes. Awakening. The world was colored red. Everything was different from the scene of only moments ago. On the other side of the sliding doors, 3 flames of different sizes flickered. The lives of his father, mother, and Sasuke. He focused his attention on the flames. The sliding door faded and he could clearly see into the neighboring room. 3 people lived in this red world. If he squinted and concentrated, he felt like he would even be able to see their hearts beating. I'm dizzy. He was wasting chakra. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he slowly lifted his lids again, the world had returned to normal. The Sharingan. He remembered the masked man. Itachi had seen an eye on the other side of that small hole in the bizarre mask and clearly remembered 3 Magatama floating in that red iris. "You won't beat me next time," Itachi murmured, as red colored his eyes once more. 4. The man had been waving his kunai up at the sky for a while, before Itachi finally placed a gentle hand on his back. "You done yet?" The man's shoulders shot up, as though Itachi's voice had awakened him from a dream, and he whirled around. "The thing you've been trying so desperately to cut in half is my genjutsu. What? Do you want to have the dream again?" Both of Itachi's eyes were a deep red. Yee. Yee. The man dropped his kunai and cowered the moment he saw the Sharingan. "Have mercy," he begged, tears streaming down his face. Itachi's eyes turned black again. "Itachi," a voice called from behind. "Yuki." 2 ninja trailed along behind him. The new additions to Team 2. Tenma's death forced Shinko to confront the reality of the callous nature of the world of the ninja, breaking her spirit. So she resigned as a ninja, and now worked in a tea shop in the village. The new ninja had both graduated from the academy that year. They had been ahead of Itachi at school, but as a ninja, Itachi had a year's seniority on them. "Did you catch him?" Itachi turned his gaze back to the man quailing on the ground. Yuki came over to stand in front of the man, the 2 new recruits behind him, looking relieved. "You can't sneak into the village and misrepresent your history. Just because you want to be a ninja, you know. That's not how people become ninja." "I am sorry. By the way, this kid's only 9. We got kids like this all over the place. That's the world of the ninja." The man opened his eyes wide in surprise. A resident of the Land of Fire had slipped into the village with the intention of becoming a ninja. They were to secure the man and put the fear of the ninja in him. That was their current mission. Of course, it was the lowest mission rank, AD. But it was the right level for the 2 newcomers, so that was how it had to be. Naturally, however, Itachi couldn't get completely on board with this. It had been just over 3 months since they started doing nothing but D-rank missions, and Itachi felt a growing sense of urgency. Did he really have the time to be doing this sort of thing? He had the absurd thought that he was actually training himself to master the Sharingan through these sorts of missions. "Way to go, Master Itachi." As always, the new girl called out, cheerfully. Even though she was 4 years older than he was, she called him Master. Her name was Hamuka. She had a face that didn't make much of an impression. The other newcomer was a boy. It had been 3 months since he joined Team 2, but Itachi had never once seen him talk. His name was Yoji, and he was from the Aburane clan, but so far, Itachi hadn't seen him use insects. "Alright, let's head back to the village." Yuki's bright voice made Itachi's heart that much heavier. "Ah." Expelling a breath full of ambition, Shisui looked at Itachi and smiled. "Yeah, training with you forces me to really put my back into it." Itachi looked at his cheerful friend and felt refreshed in both mind and body as he stood there drenched in sweat. They had been sparring seriously for 3 hours or so, as a way for Itachi to vent his anger with his assignments. They had already gone 15 rounds, with breaks of about 3 minutes after each one, resulting in 6 wins for Itachi and 9 for Shisui. The only rule was no Sharingan, everything else was fair game. Sharingan was off limits because the visual technique used up a large amount of chakra, and they wanted to spar for as long as possible. The shuriken they flung at each other clashed in the air, and flew off in some unexpected direction. Neither Itachi nor Shisui watched to see where they went. They were already leaping at each other, and closing the distance between themselves. "Chi! Ah!" Their fighting cries blended together. Their bodies collided in midair, tangled together, and crashed to the ground. Shisui got to his feet and in position first, and launched a kick at Itachi, who was propped up on one knee. Itachi immediately thrust his right arm out to block it. His field of view shaking with the impact of the kick, he saw his friend quickly weaving signs. Fire style. Great fireball technique, Shisui shouted, and an enormous ball of flame shot out of his mouth. Itachi stared at the flames streaking toward him, a smile pulling up his lips at the corners. Just like Shisui. Itachi was thrilled. He gloated to himself that even among the people of their clan, only his father and Shisui could release a fireball this massive. Shisui wouldn't be able to manage a counterattack in time. His defense was slow, too. Direct hit. No way, Shisui cried out at the unexpected result. The giant ball of flames ripped Itachi into countless pieces, which transformed into a myriad of crows that attacked all at once. Substitution. The real Itachi was running around behind Shisui. Before Shisui could sense his aura and whirl around, the smaller boy had a kunai at his throat. So you win, huh? Shisui said, regretfully. In the end, they sparred 35 times. The result was 11 wins for Itachi and 24 for Shisui. You're beyond Genin level already. Shisui took a swig of water from his canteen. Your Chunin exam being put off again this year? Yeah, Itachi replied, before tilting his own canteen back to pour cool water into his mouth. You said your supervisor Jonin was Minazuki Yuki or something, right? Itachi nodded silently. Is he maybe jealous of you? Maybe he's not into what a genius you are, so he's putting off recommending you for the Chunin exams? There's nothing I can do, even if that is what's going on with him. There was no point in thinking about Yuki's thought process in not recommending Itachi. He wouldn't get to take the Chunin exam again this year. That was a fact. But I mean, you're already so. Let's just forget about it. If they talked about it anymore, all that would happen would be that his regret would just grow stronger. That reminds me, what happened to that girl Uchiha Izumi? Shisui awkwardly changed the topic, and Itachi turned wide eyes on him. It's usually hard to figure out what you're thinking, but I guess this at least is pretty easy. What do you mean? Go take a look in a mirror, Shisui said, a playful smile spreading across his face. Itachi averted his eyes. I don't have an opinion on her either way. And yet, the minute I said the name Izumi, you looked like you had a pretty strong opinion. Strong opinion? Did he? There was no doubt that Izumi was one of the few friends he had. But he also felt like that's all she was. But then, when pressed by Shisui like this, he felt like maybe she was different. Still, that said, whatever his feelings for her were, they didn't seem romantic. In short, he didn't really know either. Anyway, how's your father? Don't change the subject, Shisui said with a grin, before his bright expression clouded over the slightest bit. Same as always. His father had lost a leg in the last Great War and fallen ill because of that injury. He was currently bedridden. Shisui lived alone with his mother and father and was the family breadwinner. He's gotten a lot weaker lately. He's even stopped recognizing me. Really? Well, everybody dies someday. I'm ready for it. Faced with Shisui's sad resolve, Itachi didn't know how to respond. I saw the lineup for this year's Chunin exams. Danzo started abruptly, in front of Hiruzen, seated in the Hokage's chair. It seems that Uchiha Itachi is not on the list once more. Hiruzen lifted his eyes from the papers on his desk to look at Danzo curiously. Now that you mention it, you went out of your way to speak to Itachi when he graduated, didn't you? I felt I should lay eyes on the face of the Academy's top graduate of all time. I had no idea you were so fixated on the members of the Uchiha clan. It is a loss for the village to make someone with such a promising future waste several years. Hiruzen frowned. But he can't take the exams without the recommendation of his supervising jonin. Itachi's supervising Jonin, Minazuki Yuki, is below average among the Jonin. The corners of Danzo's mouth abruptly shot up. He's likely jealous of Itachi's abilities. Yuki's not that sort of. He is that sort of man, Danzo asserted, as if to beat back Hiruzen's opinion. Perhaps you are unaware, but that man has already sent several Jonin more talented than himself back to the academy. He can't do that this time, because Itachi so obviously excels. The boy's name is known throughout the village. That's ridiculous, scoffed Hiruzen. He normally doesn't show it, but deep down, Minazuki has a dark nature. A member of the Foundation had investigated him. The Foundation, the Umbu training division under Danzo's direct control, had a vast information network within the village. The thinking, the philosophies of every ninja in the village, what kind of tendencies they had, the Foundation looked into everything very diligently. All for the security of the village. If the Uchiha clan's Konoha military police force was a police organization to maintain public order on the village's surface, then the Foundation was something like a secret police force that maintained public order from underground. Inheriting an undiluted version of Danzo's ideal of protecting the peace with darkness, the Foundation leaned even more strongly in that direction than the Umbu, which was under the Hokage's control. In other words, the military police force and the Foundation were two sides of the same coin. Heaving a great sigh, Hiruzen slowly opened his mouth. If Yuki won't recommend him, then we can simply promote Itachi to Chunin through an official decision. It's better for the village to have him take the exams. Hiruzen brought his pipe to his lips. The Chunin exams is a place where the officials from all the countries come together in the same room, Danzo continued. Which is to say, it's an opportunity to display the future fighting potential of each land. If we demonstrate Itachi's abilities there, it will enhance the threat our village poses to other countries. Itachi is indeed a gifted ninja, but does he really have that kind of ability? Hiruzen had only seen the surface evaluations of the mission results, which is why he could ask such a question. How could he demonstrate his true abilities on missions where he is forced to go along with a supervisor and teammates who are so clearly inferior to him? Keeping Itachi buried out in the fields any further will be a loss to the village, such that we may never recover. I'm surprised you value the Uchiha clan so highly. The boy Itachi has precisely such value. Hiruzen had no idea of Danzo's true intentions. He might have at least been aware that Danzo had ulterior motives, but even the astute Hiruzen would not realize just what those motives might have been. Uchiha Itachi. Danzo believed the boy was the very person to fulfill his own dearest wish. Konoha and Uchiha. A trump card to sever the link that had continued since the establishment of the village. That was Itachi. How could he get him under his control? That was the issue. I'm home. Itachi. You're home. Small hands hugged Itachi's back as he took his shoes off. Is your mission today over? Standing in the hallway, he patted his 4-year-old brother's head. You tired? Now able to speak properly, Sasuke seemed overwhelmed by his desire to talk to Itachi. The smaller boy took great, swinging steps and followed him as he walked down the hallway to the room they shared. From the minute you leave the house, Sasuke's waiting for his big brother to come home, you know, his mother had told him, and he had been embarrassed but also delighted, and somehow self-conscious. I want to go on missions too. Still too early for you, Itachi said, laughing as he walked. The sliding door before him was open. His father's room. You're home? Yes. His father came out with a sour look on his face and stood in front of Itachi. Lord Hokage called me in today to talk about you. About me? On the recommendation of village officials, he wants you to take the Chunin exams next year. The other examinees will be working in groups. Naturally, this will put you in a difficult situation. But his father closed his eyes and lowered his face for a moment before lifting it again to look straight at Itachi. I told Lord Hokage that you would take part. But thank you. Itachi stuttered. For so long now, he had endured a disappointment he couldn't completely push aside, no matter how he tried to make himself accept the situation. But those days were finally coming to an end. He had wondered how many more years he would have to continue as a genin on that team. He could see the shroud of heavy clouds over his heart clearing away. The village officials recommended you directly instead of your supervising jonin. So make sure you do it right. I will. Hey, Daddy, what's happening with Itachi? Wanting to be a part of the conversation, Sasuke wedged himself between them and looked up at their father. You hurry, and be a brave ninja like your brother, too, Fugaku said, reaching down to lift his younger son up into his arms. Sasuke's smile wavered. All right. Good boy. Sasuke's innocent grin brought a smile to their father's face, as well. Apparently, it was Shimura Danzo who pushed hard for you to take the Chunin exams. Shimura Danzo, Itachi recalled the shadowed face he had seen on the day of his graduation. What do you think of the Umbu? Itachi asked. In his father's voice was a darkness, out of place with his sunny grin. Boys. His mother's voice came from the opposite end of the hall. It's almost supper time. First, the Chunin exams. As long as you show off your true abilities, you'll get through them without any problem. We'll talk after that. Umbu. Talk after that. His father, still holding his little brother, disappeared toward the dining room where his mother was waiting, leaving his ominous words hanging in the air. Itachi saw light and darkness on the path that stretched out into the future. Left alone in the hall, the vividness of both dazzled Itachi, toyed with his heart. End of Chapter 2. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.